Okay, so this would be a feedback slash critique for Futurebeats in a Paul mirror. Wowzers. Yeah. God, when did you send this? The beginning of May. Oh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, meant to get to it earlier. Work and life went crazy. So if this is outdated already, my apologies. Let me lower my audio a little bit. Okay, so yeah, you know the drill, but I'm still gonna say it anyway. I go by Shazam on the Discords. You might have seen me post here and there. I enjoy just a little bit. I enjoy playing Paul and Tekken. Some might say I enjoy the game, right? However, I am by no means a professional, right? I'm just someone who enjoys Tekken, enjoys playing Paul a lot, and based on those experiences of playing Paul, fighting Paul, watching Paul gameplay, all this sorts of stuff, I am trying to give some feedback and just some food for thought, right? What I say is by no means gospel. It's just kind of like a, hey, why not try this out? Why do this instead of that? Why this instead of that? Etc., etc., etc. Right? Take it with a grain of salt, but take it into consideration. And yeah, with all that said, let's get into it. Okay, so right here, from you exemplify good movement, you exemplify strong sidesteps, but they don't appear as much. Like, there are times when you sidestep and you have some of like really sick whiff punishments, right? I watched the entire set. I'm going to be focusing on two matches. The match we're watching right now on this Forgotten Realm stage, or it's not Forgotten Realm, but Forbidden Temple, whatever it's called, and then on the Infinite stage, the Russian train yard one. And I feel like you should also rewatch these matches and just analyze your movement, right? Why are you moving the way you are? What exactly is going on through your head? Is it an automatic body thing? Are you just immediately backdashing? It's very hard in Tekken to always be doing every single action with purpose, right? But in my opinion, it's very important to, like, how do I say this? 30 to 40% of you just being automatic piloting is understandable, right? And but you want to try and as much any action you take have as much purpose behind it as possible, right? Each action you take should be a deliberate decision on your part at the start, right? Because if you just go on autopilot, that makes you more predictable, it makes your timings easier to read, right? Or you'll start to see habits start to form. So how do we get rid of those habits? How do we improve those habits? A lot of it has to do with first establishing like a baseline, right? Of I'm going to purposely do these things, right? When I wanted to, so when I was playing, and I mean, I still play, but when I was really stuck in a specific habit, right? I had a habit of always whiff punishing with Death Fist no matter what, right? Which is on it, like for a 50 damage, 50 damage whiff punisher, not that bad, right? Not that bad at all. Of course, when I want to record, my throat fucking dies. However, what could I do better? I could be whiff punishing with the core circle forward one. And in order to do that, I purposely like made it my mission to whiff punish with core circle forward one where possible, right? And it wasn't easy. It took time, right? But as I purposely did that, my baseline autopilot got better. My muscle memory would be more used to core circle forward one, right? It would still take a little bit of time, right? I'd have to recognize the situations where, yes, core circle forward 1 was actually feasible, right? Because core circle forward 1, even at its fastest, is like 18 frames, right? Versus Death Fist 15. And those 3 frames matter a lot when it comes to whiff punishing things. right? Like it is impossible to whiff punish a jab with core circle forward one, right? Like on reaction, the jab has entered its whiff recovery end, because the jabs have like 17 frames of whiff recovery. They're like minus 17 on whiff, right? It is literally impossible to whiff punish with core circle forward. You might see it here and there because core circle forward one will go under highs, right? But it's not technically, like, it's not a thing, right? Whereas with Death Fist, technically, yes, you can whiff punish jabs more easily. Anyway, I'm rambling, but the goal is you set a specific goal in mind, you set a specific pattern that you want to reproduce in your automatic gameplay, and just, you know, keep chipping away at it until it becomes a habit. So moving with purpose, pressing any button with purpose versus just, I'm kind of lost at what to do, I'm going to do what I've done before. And, you know, if the opponent gets a good sense of your timing, which Train seems to have done, you're going to get blown the fuck up, right? But I'll try to point out some situations where I'm like, hey, why are you doing this here, right? What is going on here? What do you want your goal to be? And try not to overwhelm yourself by like, every single decision has to have or every single action has to have a decision behind it. It's not necessarily that. I'm not saying that you have to have every single action have a decision behind it, but more so just kind of like, hey, try to increase that a little bit more, just a little bit more, right? Build up yourself and try to establish some goals. This is going to come up a lot when it comes to poking, right? Right, having a game plan and trying to focus on executing that game plan is a bit more ideal, as opposed to just aimlessly wandering around. Obviously, Tekken is very difficult because of the many methods, many avenues of attack, and obviously you have to factor in your opponent's responses. But just having a game plan of like, I want to get my opponent to the wall, I want to whiff punish with this, I want to do X, which leads to Y, right? Having some sort of focus might help you a bit more. And I'll try to point out some areas where I'm kind of like, hey, try to implement this, and you can decide for yourself if that's something you want to do or not. All right. Good break. Okay, so like right here. So I'm not criticizing you here, right? Death Fist is the punish for Death Fist, but I think it's difficult online. I don't know. You know, some might say, no, you still want to go for it online because that's the practice for offline, right? Play as you would offline. But Tekken's online is just so inconsistent, and this comes up later because you have a lot of connection issues in some of the later matches. But so it's really hard. I don't know. But if you consistently get this Death Fist punish in training mode and stuff, right? Like if you have it down, go for it, right? But if you don't, right, you should be calling out Paul with movement. All of Paul's power mids are scary, yes, but save for like Hammer of the Gods, forward 1+2, right? Any singular power mid that he does, right, is either not going to be as long range as Death Fist or be linear, right? Forward 1+2 has some weird tracking to sidestep right. I've seen it happen a few times, but I've also just seen it whiff. So you should experiment in training mode, right? Which one, how many, you know, based on Paul's mids, which ones can you really step? And then the most important one to step, obviously, is Death Fist, right? Because that's how you're going to get those really juicy punishes. And most importantly, that'll make your opponent second guess from just mindlessly pressing a 50 damage mid, right? So, because this block punishment, yes, it is technically possible, but is it consistently feasible? Not really, right? But if you are properly sidestepping, as in you're not pressing any buttons, extending your hurt box, and then all of a sudden a Death Fist that would normally whiff just suddenly clips you and then you die, right? That happens all the time. But if you properly sidestep, meaning you don't extend your hurt boxes and the Death Fist doesn't clip you, boom. Easiest launch, right? Yeah, sure, sometimes it might be sideways, but it's way more damage than you're going to get from doing what you're doing here, right? But if you're not sidestepping, you're not getting that damage, you're not making your opponent second guess from just pressing Death Fist in your face. All right. That is the drawback of Death Fist. That is the drawback of a lot of Paul's mids, is that he has to make you stop sidestepping. And to do that, he has to rely on a lot of like highs and lows. Yes, he has up back too, right? But it's not that crazy range, right? Compare the range on up back 2 to the range on back 1 to the range on core circle forward 3, and the range just isn't that similar, right? So, and if he uses up back 2 more often, right, it's very slow, right? So your sidestep is less likely, if you just properly sidestep block, you're less likely to get clipped versus something like back 1 versus something like core circle forward 3, right? Because if you don't want to commit to the duck, I mean. And then if you block up back 2, the Paul is now -9, right? Versus you block back 1, you just don't get anything, right? Unless they commit to the string. If you block core circle forward 3, yes, you will get a punish, but now you're ducking against Paul, and is that really the situation you want to be in, right? So this is also going to come up a lot, but just patience and using your defense as a method of conditioning the opponent, right? So defense isn't just, perfect punishment, it's also movement, right? And your backdash is clean, right? Very good backdash, but you're not utilizing the 3D part of Tekken. And that's where I think you need to try and experiment a bit more, right? How can I best utilize my defense to condition my opponent's responses, right? And also at the same time, this is information as well, right? Like you just did Death Fist into like jab into Death Fist, and he didn't try to sidestep any of that, right? So that should give you some sort of, sign like, okay, well, if he's not stepping this mid, what about my more rewarding mids on block and hit, right? I mean, nothing's as rewarding as Death Fist on hit, but you get what I mean, right? Forward 1+2. Core circle back 2, right? So that you're not locked in place for 16 frames, right? Is that the max damage balcony break hit? I always just do Death Fist, but is that more? Or it leaves you closer, right? So that's actually pretty good. I should try that. I should practice that. I just do that. I just do Death Fist. Ooh, nice. Right, so this is what I'm talking about. You see this happen a lot, right? So you get a sick hit, nice clean hit. I think that was a clean hit. And then you have these moments where you sidestep really well, and then you just always eat a lot of these more than I think you should, and I'm not sure what's going on there. Not entirely sure, right? If you're not going to challenge with the button on Oki, I think you got to be mindful. You're like, okay, I know Paul really likes spring kick, right? And look at the distance that the Paul is at before the spring kick comes out, or the cross chop. Like what get up kick is hitting you from there, right? So I think you should be preemptively sidestepping here, because spring kick requires commitment, right? He presses 3+4 while he's on the ground. Paul will do spring kick, right? You can't fake it. You can't just like hold it and then cancel it or anything. He's gonna commit to it because he feels like you're gonna commit to the Oki or something. So again, this is where an opportunity for conditioning your opponent's responses will come in. It's like, okay, I know he's going to do a linear option because he's done this on Wake Up a lot, and I'm not at a distance where I should be worried about any of the get-up kicks, right? So just do a sidestep. If he doesn't do the spring kick, that's fine, right? This is the real Tekken. This is where the real game begins, right? Paul's in rage. This is where you really need to play super tight, right? Until he is dead, it is anybody's game. It's fucked up, but that's just how it be. So you're not afraid of any get-up kicks. His only response is going to be spring kick or getting up safely. If he spring kicks, right, you can chase him down, and any whiff punish will likely seal the deal, right? Down 1-4, Death Fist, forward 2-1, right? Any of that will just get you the round. If he just stands up normally, this is fine, because now Paul has to approach you, right? And Paul's approach, unless the opponent has just really solid fundamentals, you can do stuff against his approach, right? It's not like he's gonna instantly close the gap super easily, right? Not without taking some form of risk. So you will have the control. Yes, Paul's in rage, and that's super scary, but still kind of in your favor, right? You can have a bit more control over the situation versus rushing in at him. Unfortunately. Good duck. Nice. This happens a lot. Like, he does that weird jump over setup or jump setup a lot, right? Like, he'll jump into wall standing too. And I'm not sure what's going on here, but I feel like you're too antsy on offense here, right? You'll see movement from the opponent, and then you'll immediately try to jump in and try to like brawl or scramble or do something. And it's like, why, right? Why does any sort of movement from the opponent elicit a response from you? What's going on? What is your thought process behind there? What are you trying to do, right? Are you trying to stuff his offense, right? Why would you not just magic 4, right? Just not sure what's going on there. And this is going to be a running theme throughout the set, right? Is I feel like your big Tekken is very good, right? You use a lot of the Paul's safe power moves, right? Or in situations where you're not really going to get punished, right? You're pretty compact in your gameplay. You're not really overextending yourself too much. This situation aside, like, these come up, but for the most part, I think your gameplay is very compact and very good. You're not trying to, throw out every single power move. You usually play pretty patiently. Granted, you just have some hiccups here and there, but your small Tekken is very lacking, right? You're not getting any chip damage from your opponent. The last round where you still got it, right? You weren't too worried about it, but you could have easily made that round a lot easier on yourself through any combination of like small pokes here and there, right? So I feel like that's where your Tekken is really lacking, is just kind of like utilizing Paul's jab strings a lot, utilizing corsical forward 3, utilizing sidestep 3, which is a bit more on the power low side of things, but still it's chip damage that you want to be gaining, right? It's chip damage, it's advantage, it's momentum, etc., etc., etc. I'll try and talk about that more when it comes up, but that's like the biggest thing I'm seeing in your gameplay that I think you could use a bit more work on, like how to utilize jabs, how to utilize a singular jab, how to utilize down forward 1, right? How to utilize down 1. Down 1's amazing. I love down 1, right? Very, very powerful tool when utilized or when used at all. Yeah, this dude's got some sick execution. It's pretty crazy. Unfortunate whiff on the punish. Yeah, so like, right, this is what I'm talking about here, right? So he knows that you like a lot of power moves. He knows that you like Paul's big moves and the big haymakers, and all he needs to do is just keep disrupting you, right? Paul's down forward 2 is good, and Paul's jabs kind of suck, but when he has this advantage from 1-2, he can just keep pressing it. And especially like 1 into 1-2 and 1 on hit, you're not going to interrupt 1-2. Right? Press whatever button you want. Unless that thing instantly high crushes, you're not going to interrupt 1-2. Not for a huge amount of reward anyway. I don't even think you could sidestep it at that point. Maybe you can. No. He's +8. You can't sidestep. But you see what I'm saying, right? It's just kind of like, look at all that damage you just lost just from a few simple pokes. That is what you should be focusing on. It's like, okay, yes, these small moves aren't flashy, but 10 damage here, 15 damage there, 20 damage here, 17 damage from corsical forward 3 there. All of this adds up and racks up a lot of damage, saving you maybe one less combo or one less hit to seal the deal. Good call out. Here, I think this is where a lot of stage stuff is gonna come up, right? There's a floor break here, and I'm not sure if it was the autopilot stuff, but Okay, so there's two things we should talk about here, right? So you do this a lot, right? You do wall standing too, which is your muscle memory, and it's not a bad thing. However, in my opinion, if you're not gonna utilize the gimmicky, I think it's kind of a gimmick. It's kind of not, like you are putting yourself in a mix-up, but the damage is pretty rewarding. I don't know, right? If you're not gonna use the back turned Oki of back 2-1, right? Why bother with wall standing 2, right? You're purposely putting yourself in a worse situation. Now there are situations where you do want to use wall standing 2, right? Where it's like, the range is really good. Paul advances forward a lot. He has big ass palm strike, right? So there are times where you want to use it over hop kick. Just one hop kick, obviously, range is kind of eh. And then technically wall standing 2 is less input, right? So there's less room for error. You just gotta let go of the stick, press 2. It's very easy timing, and he'll do his launcher, right? It's not like up forward 4, where even though it might seem silly, just having an extra input, having an extra step is can be tricky. However, right, up forward 4 gives you a better launch or better combo situation, right? You're more likely going to get your full combo versus having to make sacrifices due to the back turn status of the opponent, right? And in this situation where you're ducking under jabs and stuff, you're going to get either one, right? But up forward 4 is more likely to get you the wall than wall standing 2 is. So that's the first thing that I think you should really work on in terms of combos, is differentiating the situations where you want to use wall standing 2 versus hop kick, right? Have your muscle memory built in of like, this is where I'm going to wall standing 2 versus this is where I'm going to hop kick, right? If they're just whiffing a throw, if they're just whiffing jabs, I think you just hop kick, right? Unless you want that Oki. And I'm not sure if you're avoiding it because you've run into this guy a lot and you think like, oh, he's a Paul main or Paul player who will know the Oki situation. Whatever the reason is, it's a valid reason, right? Like wall standing 2 Oki with back 2-1 is not guaranteed, and it puts you in a mix-up that can easily blow up in your face, right? Completely valid. However, if you choose not to use it, I don't quite see any advantages that wall standing 2 offers over hop kick if both are going to connect. A lot of conditions there, right? But I'm just trying to cover my bases. Just basically, if you know the situation is, I can either do wall standing 2 or I can do hop kick, both are going to hit, why bother with wall standing 2 if you're not going to go for the extra benefits that it offers, right? And then, so that's something to focus on. Another thing to consider, right, is going to be, this is a floor break stage, right? Why finish with Death Fist? Why give this Paul any opportunity to utilize to his advantage? Right? He's not Devil Jin. Like, he's not going to go crazy with the floor break stage, and he's not King, right? However, it's still free damage for him, right? If you don't break Twist and Shout, he gets to have a 40 damage starter combo, right? Why give him that benefit of opportunity? This is a situation where I think the damage sacrifice and just doing down 1 is worth it. Because in this resource battle, like, you understand the stage to the best of your ability. Even if you're not going to maximize the reward off of it, denying your opponent a resource is just as valuable, right? You have to make a decision. Are you going to utilize the floor break to your advantage, or are you going to deny your opponent? Both are valid. Both have their pros and cons, right? I'm in the camp of, fuck it, I got to launch against who I'm considering a strong opponent. I don't know when I'm going to get this opportunity again. I don't want them to have that opportunity, so fuck them. Down 1, get my floor break. Don't care that it's wasted. It's more important that my opponent not have this huge momentum opportunity, right? So these are things that should be, automatic processes, right? You should immediately make the decision of, I'm going to deny my opponent this thing, you should immediately be able to differentiate the situations where you're going to do wall standing 2 versus hop kick. You should immediately make the decision of, nah, fuck this guy. He's not going to get a floor break on me. Minor things, right, in the grand scheme of things. I'm not saying that these are, How dare you not do this thing? Again, all I'm saying is this. Look at the options presented to you. Which ones do you want more, right? Weigh the pros and cons. What I'm saying could also just be could also be wrong, right? It could be that you would have gained the momentum you gained from using the floor break yourself could have gotten you the round. Anything is possible. I am merely presenting another avenue of looking at things and asking you, consider it, and if you don't, or at least understand like what's available to you, and make the decision yourself, right? Weigh your options in the future. So should you be presented with another opportunity to, floor break and that decision making, you know what to do. I just want to I'm rambling way too long on a point that really doesn't matter, but whatever. I'm in full video mode, I guess. Whatever. Make the decision yourself, and that's it. That's really all there is to it. Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk about this more later, but yeah, just a lot of big Tekken. This guy's execution is pretty good. Oh, you almost got him. Ah, tragic. That's an interesting setup. I never think about that. I'm always expecting while standing 3-2. I should maybe try that. Maybe. Unfortunate. Do you guys even flip? Ooh, clean whiff punish. Let's go. Ah, there you go. Ah, unfortunate. Yeah, this is one of those where the wall's not immediately right after you break it. So, don't know what that was about. Okay, so right after you jab here, right? What's the thought process in your head? Were you doing jab into death fist, right? Why? What's the immediate action going on through your head? I think we talked about this in the previous video where I'm saying like, I'm seeing you do down forward 2 into movement or something, and I don't know why, right? Or I'm seeing you do something that leaves you safe but heavily minus, and then you're immediately trying to do something, and I'm not sure why that is, right? When you do something with Paul, when you do a move with Paul, it's over, right? You press the button. You hope it gets blocked, because that's the beauty of Paul. Everything that the opponent blocks, you're safe on. And then once it's blocked, your turn is over. Is it always the case? Do you want to mash under minus frames? Do you want to practice abare? Right? If you use the Japanese word, it's fancier. Right? Yes, obvious. Yes, there's going to be situations where you're going to mash under that because your opponent's not ready for it, and that could be the momentum swing that you need. But where we're at right now is that I feel like you're too far in on the mashing side of things, because you're just too overeager to apply your offense, whatever that may be, and then Train is able to just run a train on you, right? So again, when you block something and you're safe but heavily minus, right? Or if you whiff something like a jab, right? Your first thing should be analyzing what your opponent is doing, right? Every response from the opponent is information, right? Based on what your opponent is doing, do they immediately go for something really slow but heavy and powerful, right? Do they try to go for forward 1+2 or some shit, right? Then you can go, okay, well, he's going to go for forward 1+2, or he likes to go for his big power moves. I can beat them with this, right? So that's how you'll know, like, when am I really going to mash, is being able to read your opponent's habits, right? Right now, it feels like you're too over-eager. Your timing is always going to be button into button, right? It's never button, pause, button. It's always button, button. Or it's never even just button movement, then button, right? So experiment a bit more with your timing. Try to get a sense of like, how can I mix up my timing to keep my opponent constantly in a state of mental fatigue, right? They need to be always guessing about every option that Paul can throw out, and as a result, increase their mental load. So while they're too busy focusing on what you're doing and what all the things that you could be doing, right? When they're too busy fighting that mental battle, you're able to break them down by just overloading their mental stack, right? Man, this guy's execution's good. It's crazy. The setups. Oh, does he get you with both? Nice. Fuck him up. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? Sick with... I really like this. Right, so you immediately do the sidestep because you're disaligning yourself from the wall and you're not cornering yourself. He goes for the throw. You immediately whiff punish with shredders. Beautiful. I don't forget if it works out, but... Tragedy. However... everything leading up to that, I think, was the correct decision to make, right? Because right here, he's prone to get up kicks, right? He's prone to doing something on wake up. Forward 1+2 will in this situation will likely beat anything he presses due to the long startup from this situation, right? It's not like he has toe kick to worry about. So while it did not work out, I agree with the decision making. It's just unfortunate that it didn't work out. So in this situation, another thing to consider is back four, right? It's the same speed as forward 1+2. So if you're doing an option where forward 1+2 is going to win, back four will also win. And let's look at the pros and cons here, right? The con to back four is that it's less damage than forward 1+2. It's not a counter hit knockdown, it's just momentum and an advantage, right? However, in this situation, both are going to kill, right? But even if they weren't, let's say the train had more health, right? Even if you got the counter hit situation off forward 1+2, would it really be beneficial? You're not going to get a wall splat off of it. You'll just get into another Oki knockdown situation, right? Let's say your health is the same. Is it really beneficial, or will the huge amount of frame advantage when your opponent's back is to the wall can also lead to something, right? Because the frame advantage from back four counter hit, assuming he does something, gives you such massive frame advantage, 90% of your move list will be uninterruptible, right? You're kind of stretching it, but if you have the execution for it, a lot of your move list is going to be uninterruptible. Versus something like forward 1+2 counter hit leading to another knockdown, and now you're in another mix-up, right? Like, what is the opponent going to do? Actually, I don't know if in this situation it would lead to another, face up, head towards situation, because that's the most beneficial Oki situation. If that's the case, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, long-winded rambling. In this situation, either move is going to kill, but back four hits grounded. Right? So in the event that the opponent doesn't press anything, they still die. So that's something you should be factoring in and utilizing in your Oki. That's what, and because it hits grounded, because it has such a strong counter hit property, and the damage is pretty respectable. It's like 14 or 15 points of damage. It's what makes back four such a strong tool, right? It's very similar to stature kick from Kazuya, which also now hits grounded for whatever reason. Obviously, in Kazuya's situation, it's way more fucked. But Paul has a very, very similar, like, arguably cheaper. Actually, let me check. How fast is Steel Pedal? $18 frames. Really? 18 frames? That's fucking busted. What the fuck? Unfortunate. It's pretty close though. Actually, Down Back 2 is way faster than I realized. What the fuck? 19 frames? So Paul has a pretty good imitation of Steel Pedal and Down Back 4 mix-up, right? Paul Steel Pedal's Down Back 2, slightly slower, but counter hit launcher, he knocked down on hit, unsafe on block, but it's like with the pushback it might as well be safe, right? And he has back 4. So actually, let me compare that. Oh wait. Down back 4. Paul back 4. God, stature kick's so stupid. So stature kick is 4 more points of damage, which is a lot, right? So now it's closer to 20 than Paul's is. So Paul's ghetto versions, Paul's imitation versions are still powerful, right? You're hitting grounded, on counter hit you're benefiting, on hit you're benefiting, on block which the opponent isn't gonna wake up in time to block this stuff, right? So something to consider, right? Back 4 is really good. Honestly, it's really good. Like, yeah, it's not always +4, but it's fine. It's whatever. Yeah, so consider adding back 4 to your Oki arsenal. Very powerful option, especially in situations like this where forward 1+2 is going to whiff because it doesn't hit grounded. Or, yeah, it doesn't hit grounded. That'd be really fucking funny if it did, though. Oh, almost thought I lost my recording. Unfortunate. Was this the first one you did? It is. Okay. I wanted to watch the second one. Oh, sorry for the yawn. I'm tired after work. Alright. No pain, no gain. Ah. So good block, although I'm not sure why you would do the improper punish. I'm not going to harp on it too much. It is what it is, but you know, it's the reason sidestep 3 is so powerful. It's because it's -12 on block for everything it does. Fun game. Oh, weird block. Nice. Good combo. Ah, unfortunate. Yeah, not sure what needs to happen for there. Oh. Ooh, unfortunate. Good whiff punish. Interesting call out. He doesn't kill you, but I wonder, honestly sometimes wonder if Shredder, because sometimes there's weird pushback with Iron Mountain, so I wonder if like Shredders or down forward 2 doesn't reach. Makes you wonder. Good block. It's only happened like twice. Oh no! Oh, weird. Nice. Ooh, right. So that right there, that should have. I don't know if it was the round, but you know. That should have been back 1 too. But maybe you were already committing to the backdash and the side step. That's fine. That's fine, actually. Nice. Good call out. And he answers back with a call. Oh, he drops it. Good duck. Weird combo situation, right? So this is what I'm talking about, right? So you get this. You're not really... I don't know if it's because you were too slow or what's going on there, but so you got the sidestep, missed the whiff punish. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. Oh no! Why even do that? What is the point? Unfortunate. Oh, he just steamrolls you here, right? Yeah, so unfortunate. So right here, well, unfortunate ending, but all right. Ooh. Let's talk about it. Right. Neutral punishment slash master knowledge, combo slash Oki, personal opinion stuff. Neutral. Your small Tekken is just really hurting you, right? Not only are you not getting the chip damage that you should be, right? You're missing out on chip damage, making you rely more on combos, right? Combos and Oki to win the round, which again, it's part of it. Yes, obviously combos are important, but chip damage is also just as important, because you rack up enough chip damage, that's how you're going to force your opponent to act and make mistakes, which you then punish, right? It all interconnects. It all flows together. You get the big combos and rewards because you are poking your opponent down and creating frustration within them, right? And if they just stay still and they just let you poke them to death, then they let you poke them to death, right? Yes, it will take like 20 lows to kill the opponent or some shit, right? But the reason we do these lows, I guess it'll take 10, or if it's Corsical 4-3. But the reason we do these lows is because they carry less inherent risk than slamming all of our power moves consistently. Yeah, Paul has a bunch of safe launchers and all this other fucked up counter hit shit, but they are still less risk involved than having the flexibility to mix up your timing with singular pokes. Yes, Paul's poking is awkward, right? Nobody's gonna write home to Harada about, man, why the fuck does Paul have these amazing pokes, blah blah blah. I mean, except Corsical forward 3, and honestly, Corsical back 4, I treat it as a poke. Fuck it, that move was amazing. But yes, Paul's small Tekken isn't exactly something to gush about, right? Like he's not gonna be brawling with Law, he's not gonna be brawling with Steve. But he has these tools, he has these generic options, and they need to be utilized because they supplement your main game plan of counter hits, of turtling, of keep out. Right? Biggest thing to work on: how to better utilize jabs, how to better utilize your low pokes, right? How to better rack up that chip damage so that you can maybe get half less combo, right? Instead of taking 3 combos to kill someone, it'll take 2.5. Maybe even 2 if you rack up enough chip damage, right? So that should be a big focus, right? Other aspects of neutral, low pokes were just basically non-existent throughout the match. They came up sparingly, but he wasn't afraid of ducking at any point as much as he should have been, right? He was confident in his ability to challenge you on neutral because you were using a lot of Paul's powerful options, but slower options, right? Easily counter hit out of, easily frame trapped out of, etc., etc., etc. But if you instead utilize his low pokes a bit more, make your opponent scared to duck, right? And it can be scary, right? This train seems pretty confident in Paul. He's got a 10 win streak going on, right? And he could be like, he could just have laser focus and read when you're gonna go for Corsical 4-3. But that's how you learn, right? You apply these tactics to a strong opponent. When it doesn't work out, you analyze why, and then you learn how to better implement your tactics. Relying on big power moves like all of Paul's backsway options and his counter hit options and all this other stuff, the pendulum is on too much on the other side, right? You gotta bring it in a little bit, and you don't need to completely play super compact, right? I'm not saying never ever press a single power move from Paul ever again, but the pendulum's gotta swing in the opposite direction a little bit. We need to see we're seeing like 80 to 90% big Tekken, big power moves from your Paul, and just not enough pokes, when really we want to see like 70-30, 60-40, right? Maybe not 50-50. I don't think Paul's pokes are that great, right? But they are critical to his game plan. They're critical to being able to condition your opponent, just as movement is, right? And again, like I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but movement is like purposely implementing a few sidesteps here and there to mess with your opponent, because the opponent should always be afraid of sidestep 3, right? If they sidestep, you should either be whiff punishing them, or you should be pressing sidestep 3 or mixing up with the mid, right? There should always be some of those things going on. Or if the next level layer of Yomi or whatever is the whole like empty sidestep blocking to just make your opponent more incentivized to use his tracking or homing options. All right. And you should be sidestepping because it is just as much of a conditioning tool as your actual button moves are, right? Because as you sidestep, the opponent will start second guessing using his big power mids like Death Fist, like Core Circle Back 2, like possibly Core Circle Back 1+2. That one's a little weird. Sometimes it tracks really weirdly and sometimes it doesn't. But you get what I'm saying, right? Other aspects of neutral. Talked about most of it. I think I hit the key points I really wanted to make. So I will leave it at that. Punish. What was first? Combos or punishment? Punishment / matchup knowledge, right? This dude was throwing you around like no tomorrow, right? And if you're not working on throw breaks, I mean, I'm going to be real with you. I don't work on throw breaks. I'm very lazy. I just don't give enough of a shit, right? You have to be kind of mindful of like calling out the opponent, right? He should be scared to just dash up in front of you and then throwing you in your face, right? He should be terrified of doing that. He's not afraid because you're not using your jab strings as keep out. You're not utilizing as much keep out as you could be, and because you're not calling him out on hard ducking. Don't do what other people do. I throw people all the time, and I'm shit at breaking throws, right? But the reason I might have a higher throw break rating or some shit is because people are super predictable online, where they're like, "How dare this person throw me?" And then they'll dash up in your face and then throw you. It's like, okay, dude, I'm the one with the full throw game, right? You're not. I mean, in this situation, you're doing a mirror match, so it's kind of... But even in that situation where they do have a full throw game, I just duck, right? And then their throw whiffs, and I'm like, nice, idiot, and then I launch them. Right? So punishment / matchup knowledge, it's like, I'm not going to harp too much on the Paul-specific punishes. You know what they are by now. Practice it, get the muscle memory down. But you need to just kind of adapt to your opponent a little bit more. Right? I think you're playing the matchup well at the far to mid range. Like you're very deliberate in when you press moves. You're not like throwing out moves like crazy, right? I mean, there is maybe a benefit to doing that, but you're not losing your shit and pressing every button in existence like many Paul mains online seem to do, right? However, for some reason, when it gets in the up close and personal, whether you're too anxious or you're too overeager to apply your offense, you're not respecting what your opponent is doing, and what he is doing is challenging you when he's up close, and he's consistently rewarded for it. Not always, right? He's not winning every single interaction up close, but enough where it's costing you a lot of momentum, if not just costing you the round. So maybe exercise a bit more patience up close when you're against an opponent like this, and be more mindful of what their options are. Like, what options are they going for? How can I punish them? How can I disrupt them? Sometimes it's going to be, I'm just going to wait and punish. And other times it's going to be, I'm going to just disrupt them with jabs, right? Disrupt them with your smaller tools, but faster. So in a situation where you're going to do jab into death fist, you'll do jab into down back 4, right? Maybe it is less reward, but again, it's another form of conditioning, because now the opponent's like, well, if he's going to consistently dick jab me or down back 4 me, he'll be more incentivized to press something like hop kick, right? And if you press his hop kick, you read that he's like ready and primed to challenge you. You just block, and then you get a free back 1-2 punish, right? So again, adjusting your timings to fit your opponent is very necessary here. If you cannot throw break, which is completely fine, especially online, call out your opponent, right? If they're just running at you, just fuck it. It's like, all right, no fear. I'm gonna sidestep or duck. You did it on the not forbidden realm, the temple stage, whatever it's called, right? You had a really nice sidestep. Because he went for the throw, and Paul's throws don't track, right? He's not. He might have a full throw game, but for whatever reason, he's not considered a grappler like the Kings and Marduk, right? His throws don't track, right? So a clean sidestep, immediately whiff punish, right? Very rewarding. You should be doing that also be ready to do that when the opponent's just dashing up in your face like that. Combos slash Oki. Combos. I think your combo game is really good, right? I saw some really nice combos on your end. I just think it's more about your situational awareness. Why do you go for wall standing 2 and go into like these weird combo routes if you're not going to go for the ones that get you a lot of damage, right? If you're not going to go for the Oki, if you're not even going to use the Oki to try and be like, oh, what is my opponent going to do in this situation? Then just do hop kick, right? If both are going to hit, just do hop kick. Get the clean combo because you'll get better wall carry and a better ender. And then, you know, it'll be more momentum in your favor versus just always doing wall standing 2. Or, you know, fuck it. Just go for wall standing 2, right? Just do it. Just play wall standing 2. Just, you know, go for the Oki. Who cares that it's another Paul main, right? Who cares if this guy's doing core circle forward 1 loop somewhat on demand, right? Your opponent has to prove to you first that they can handle themselves in that situation before just sealing it off. Or just do hop kick. All right, I've already talked about that enough, but just, you know, weigh your options, figure out which one better suits your playstyle, and do it. Oki. You think you're too overeager to apply your Oki and just need to be a little bit more patient aiming for whiff punishes. You do a little bit when you're still on the floor break stage, whatever it was. You had a really clean sidestep that avoid the get up 3. I didn't get the whiff punish, but I liked the initiative, right? Because you had the read of like, okay, I'm way too overeager on Oki. Let me dash up to elicit a response and then sidestep, and it ended up being the right option. But, you know, consider adding back 4. Consider first just focusing on like how does your opponent like to challenge you on Oki and what can you do accordingly, right? Sometimes it's going to be dash in, backdash, right? Sometimes it's going to be dash in, sidestep like you did. Sometimes it's going to be dash in, fuck it, I don't care what you're doing, committing to shredder kicks or something. Or sometimes it's just going to be, all right, I'm just going to wait, you're going to press a button and I'll just do death fist, right? So, yeah, maybe a bit more experimentation, a bit more, it goes back into, like, patience. And first making sure that whatever option you are doing is actually something that will work on this opponent. Last little thing, and then Oki on the opponent's side, right? The last little thing I'll talk about before I go into my personal opinion stuff. So this whole setup that he's doing on you, you know, just recreate it in the lab. You play the character, you can recreate the setup, put yourself in that loop and figure out what you can do to respond to it, right? Is the answer just wake up and block low? Is the answer, do you have enough time to just wake up hop kick, right? You have options. I would just recommend seeing what those options are so you don't get caught by these setups again. Yeah, personal opinion stuff. Stuff that I think is neat, but your mileage may vary, right? I talked a lot about it, but, you know, just a lot more small Tekken, a lot more back 4, a lot more Corsical forward 3, a lot more sidestep 3. I think you should be sidestepping a bit more in the neutral. Your backdashes are clean, but you're sidestep at the range. Practice your spacing with sidestep 3, and then make sure to constantly be sidestepping at the range where sidestep 3 is a threat, because you don't need to use sidestep 3 per se, but you need to be able to always threaten it. Same as Demo Man, right? Like, you don't use Demo Man, you just use the fact that everybody knows what Demo Man is in order to benefit off of it, right? Sometimes the best way to use a move is to just never use it, right? You just need to make your opponent scared of it existing. If you see that they're not scared when they should be, then you start using the move to remind them it's like, yeah, hey, this is still a move. You got to respect it. So, right. So you got to be very mindful of that, and then, you know, use it accordingly. Talked about movement, talked about jabs, talked about sidestep 3. Down 1, I'm a huge fan of the move, but I think it gets better once you've conditioned your opponent to start ducking. Or honestly, if you're just really worried about them like running in at you, I think you can use it to disrupt their keep out. I don't put it fully in the category of keep out. The whiff recovery is kind of ass, right? If Paul whiffs a button, he's kind of dead. And obviously, it's not great up close because, you're -9 in your opponent's face. It's kind of awkward. But I think it's a very powerful tool, right? The range and tracking should not be underestimated. It's a very fast tool, and I put it in the poking category due to its speed, due to the hit advantage that it offers. Do people normally look at moves that are -9 on block and go, yeah, that's a poke? No. But it's Paul, right? Like, this is some of the best you're gonna get, especially at the range. Again, it's that if it didn't have as good of a range as it does, I would not be talking about the move as much as I do. The speed and mind games from down one when the opponent is low on health and they don't want to die to like the chip, is very powerful. It's another one of those options of like, you don't need to use the string, right? Especially because down 1-4 is ass, like absolute cheeks, right? But you just need to, make them afraid of it. I think I've said a lot. I've given you a lot of food for thought, and it should be more than enough. The last thing I'll say is, once you've brushed up on the small Tekken a little bit, I think you can, that's when you want to start experimenting with down forward 1 backswing mix-ups, right? I think you should be utilizing. I honestly think it's one of Paul's, like, Powell can't talk. I think it's one of Paul's most valuable tools. The ability to just press down forward 1, hold back, and have a huge suite of mix-ups at your disposal. Very powerful, very underrated. Just don't see it used often enough. And I kind of get why. I don't know. I think his down forward 1 hitbox is just kind of ass. But it's a very powerful conditioning tool because you can see what your opponent is doing. You see Train use it a lot. Like, he did down forward 1 into into holding back into 3, so getting core circle back 3 and then counter hitting you, right? Because you were challenged and ready or you were primed and ready to challenge the sway mix-up, which is a good challenge, but it was then Train was on the next layer of like, oh, you're ready for the mix-up, you're not ready for my answer to your mix-up, right? That's what Tekken is. It's about managing those layers. Sometimes you go to layer 2, sometimes you go back to layer 1, sometimes you go to layer 4, then back to 1, right? So that constant evolution. And I think it's an option you should experiment more once you get like utilizing jabs and your basic lows a bit more. Oh, down back 4. Use down back 4, right? Very powerful tool. Again, a lot of Paul's tools are very generic, but having those generic options are what makes Paul very strong, right? Down back 4, very powerful disruption. Very powerful disruption. Super fast, right? Opponent likes running in, doing throws, down back 4, right? Yeah, it's kind of silly that it doesn't like. I don't know what's the word. It's not very rewarding. It's not a crazy amount of reward on hit, right? But it's not about the reward of the damage and the frame advantage. It's about the reward of disrupting your opponent and making them rethink their offense, right? So experiment more with small Tekken about how you can utilize it as a disruption tool, how to utilize it as keep out, and how to utilize it in order to supplement your other goals. Okay? As usual, if you got any questions, let me know. All right. Have a good one.